Today is really about bringing awareness to your story because our story runs our life and our story is created from our beliefs, from particularly our childhood. And that then dictates the way we think, the way we feel. And I have a super great example that the universe landed me in today because that's how the universe works. And I love it. Um, so today in the morning, I had a fall. I fell over, spectacular fall. It was a spectacular fall. I fell up some stairs and I had a whole cup of coffee in my hand, and the whole cup of coffee flew onto me. And I hurt my knee, I hurt my elbow. But, but the universe gave me a real opportunity to bring this story with me today because my initial reaction was straight into my child. I went straight to my child. And when I was young, I used to get told off if I fell over, if I hurt myself, if I was ill. So worse than the actual falling over was the notion that my mum is now going to get really, really angry at me and she's going to tell me off because I'm worrying her, because I'm stressing her out. Therefore, if I fall over, I've done something really, really terrible. So my first reaction was to go straight to that place of the child and think, oh my God, this is awful. This is terrible. And I fully went into the story of who I used to be. And I could hear my mind sort of going, oh my God, you're so stupid. Narrative started. Okay. That's the story. That was the story. However, and this is the crux of it for me. Okay. This is the gold bit. Then I slowed down and I reminded myself, I am not the child. I am the adult. I get to choose the story I want to tell about what happened to me. So I don't have to get sucked back into the story that has the beliefs around I'm not worthy and I'm not good enough and I'm a failure. I'm going to make people worry. The interesting thing was after I fell over, my mom phoned me. Universe doesn't pull any punches. Okay. And I told her that I had fallen over. And the first thing that she said to me was, were you running really, really fast? So that clarified that the beliefs and the story was about the fact that it has to be my fault. I have to have done something wrong. So when I got zoomed into that child space, that's what's coming up for me. It was the hurt, it was the embarrassment, it was the shame, it was the guilt that I'd done something wrong, right? That I had done something wrong. So for me, the gold in that is that moment. You take that moment when you're in your story, and the story is a lot easier to manage when everything's going quite well. It's in those moments where the universe gives you a sucker punch from out of nowhere, or something is happening in your life where it's really, really challenging. The thing that we are most prone to do is pull from our subconscious, and 95% of what we live is through the subconscious mind. Okay, that is our beliefs, that is our stories, that is the thoughts and the feelings from our past. And that is constantly how we live our life. So for me, there's like 8 billion different stories in this world at any one time. And when we're sitting there and we're telling somebody our story, every single person's going to have a different response because their perception comes from their own story. So the only way to come out of the story is to slow down enough to understand that my first reaction is probably going to come from the story that I have. So what am I now telling myself? That I'm not capable, that there's something wrong with me, that I must have done something wrong. Why wasn't I watching my step? But what did my child need? My child needed love. My child needed comfort. My child needed to know that it was okay to fall over, that no one was to blame, that I didn't have to find fault, and that I hadn't done anything wrong. So I sat with myself and I brought awareness. And that is the gift that keeps on giving: awareness. It just gives and it gives and it gives. But it's a choice. Am I going to plug into empowered awareness? Or am I just going to keep living from this hamster wheel of a story that I have about myself? Okay. And in that story in the morning, like I ended up just sitting there laughing at the universe, just going, this is hilarious. I might have hurt myself, like physically, but thank you for giving me a real life in the moment example for the event that I'm doing today. So then the story completely changed. So you get to choose the story. If you bring awareness to your life, you get to choose the story. Okay. And for me, that's a really empowering place to be. That's how you empower yourself, because you get to rewrite your story. Your story as it is right now is literally from your beliefs, your thoughts, and your past, what I've lived before. And then you zoom it into the space that you're in now. And you're like, okay, how does this identify or match up with all of the things that I've lived before? So therefore, I need to believe this about this situation. Therefore, I need to think this. I need to feel this. And then it takes you into that reality, because it's creating your reality for you. In every given moment, your reality is being created by the story that you're playing out in your head. Right? So one of the things that I'm going to give you as an exercise is to take the time to really sit with your inner child, with yourself as an adult, and write your story. And I don't like, and when I say story, I don't mean put the layers of all of the things that I might know, but literally from inside you. If you were to tell your story as it is now, as you really feel about you, what would you write? When I did this activity, that probably ended up, I plugged it into meditation, and I just allowed myself to write my story as that perspective of, this is the person I am because of all of the things I have lived, and this is what I believe about who I am. Because the only way we can really change anything in our life, our story, our beliefs, anything, is to have the immediate awareness of, what is my story looking like right now? What is it? And how is it driving my life? Because your story is there to fulfill your self-fulfilling prophecy of, I have to prove who I am. I have to prove that what I believe is true. I have to prove the stories that other people had about me. So then it's just a cycle. It's a constant cycle. It's a constant cycle. You're just constantly trying to prove that my beliefs and my story about myself is true. So if you hold the belief that I'm not good enough, you're going to keep proving it in any way that you can. And your story is going to keep taking you to that place. See this thing over here? So I could have taken what happened to me today and gone, in some way it's telling me that I'm not good enough and the universe hates me. And I would have done that. I would have done that a good few years ago. I would have started going, oh my God, and everything hates me and life hates me and this is terrible. But I would have chosen that. But it served a purpose for me too. It served a purpose for me when I lived in victim mode. It just fed back into the thing of, I'm a victim of life. I'm a victim of other people. I'm a victim of me. So really take the time, and there is no like shortcut to it. It's really, you have your story. You know how you treat yourself. You know what beliefs are driving you. So it's really about being very, very honest with yourself and writing that story down. Okay. So it's like, and start young, because for me, the belief, that story is kind of laid in your childhood. The foundation stones are there. So you can start by taking one incident if you want. You can take one experience you had in your childhood. So you can take your relationship with a parent. You can take, for me, there was a massive thing around the domestic abuse that I experienced as a child, because it went forward into all of my relationships. So you can take one experience that you've had, and you can then break it down. and go, okay, what was the experience without any emotion, just in black and white? What was the experience without me projecting anything onto that experience? Okay. Then what was my experience in this? Okay. What are the beliefs that I started to form about myself because I experienced this? So, for example, with the domestic abuse, I believe that somehow I caused it because I was told that, oh, we fight because of you. I believe that love hurts and relationships will be painful, and that's just how they are. I believed that every relationship I got into would end in the same way. And so I took those things forward into every situation and scenario. Then it's like the thoughts and the feelings around that experience that you've had. And really take it in, like take it in, sit there, read it, take it in, and then start matching it up. I guarantee you it will match up to so many of your lived experiences. That same narrative, those same beliefs, the same thoughts, and the same feelings will come up again and again and again and again. And you will start to see the story that you live. So allow it. Because this is about you honoring and witnessing your story. And if you are going through the spiritual awakening process, the soul activation process, your consciousness is rising, then the universe is constantly bringing you the opportunity to see the story that you are living from. Because that's the thing that needs to change. Right? So when we go through little things, to me, every single thing is divinely designed. So every single thing is giving you an opportunity to rewrite your story. It's giving you the chance to go, how am I seeing myself in relation to this? How am I seeing myself in relation to this? Because if my story is a story of love and unconditional love, and I love myself in the way that I know I'm loved by the universe, then in every single situation, I am present. And the underlying narrative is, it's okay. It's okay. I've got your back and it's all right. And what can I learn from this situation? Because that's how I flipped the situation today. I had to flip the internal narrative into, okay, let's not go into the past. But the thing is, these are active choices. And again, that's about your awareness. It's like, what choice am I living? Am I living the choice to just carry on where I started from? Or am I consciously making the decision to commit? Because honestly, rewriting that narrative, I have been doing it for years. And it's about commitment to you. It's about showing up for you. And it's about practice, 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 practice. So become aware in every situation. When you walk to the shops or whatever, please spend some time observing yourself outside of your body as such. Observe yourself, because even in the mundane day-to-day situations, you have a story. For some people, it's like, I can remember going to the supermarket, and every time I'd go to the supermarket, it'd be like, oh my God, it's going to be all full, and there's going to be lots of people, and there's going to be a big queue, and they probably won't have all the things I want. Story. Even in the smallest of way, it's a story. And so what do? I create that. And I create that because that's what I'm then looking for, because I have to prove that my story is right. So then I'm going to look for the fact that there's massive queues. I'm going to look for the fact that they don't have all of these things that I might want, rather than being, oh, they have all the things that, that are there. That's great. That I got to spend some time in the queue and I just got to stand there. And now I would just spend the time in observation of me, or awareness, or looking at people, smiling at people, engaging with people. So it's your story in every way, shape, and form that dictates your experience of life. So to change your experience of life, you need to change your story. That story that's running all of the time. And the only way to really become aware of it is to become aware of you from here somewhere. So watch yourself with this keen curiosity, with this real kind of, okay, I'm wondering why I'm telling myself this story right now. I'm wondering what purpose it's serving. Because it is serving a purpose. Honestly, it's serving a purpose. In your mind, in your ego mind, it's keeping you safe somehow. Right? And for a lot of people, the story is about trying to pre-predict what's going to happen. Right. It's like, if I go into this relationship, it's going to be really, really hurtful, and there's going to be these trust issues, and obviously they're going to hurt me, and so I can't trust people, and so therefore I can't open up. And so if I'm going to go into this relationship, I've got to make sure that I'm like this, and I'm like this, and I'm like this. Story, 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 story. It's a lot easier to go, I don't know what's going to happen. So if you try and live your life with a sense of, I don't know what's going to happen today. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to show up with awareness for whatever it is that's going to happen, rather than regurgitating your story. Today is going to be like yesterday, or this Wednesday is going to be like last Wednesday. Then you're giving no opportunity for anything new to develop. Once you write your story as it is and as it was, then get creative people. Because what story do you want to live? What do you want your story to be? What do you really want to believe about yourself and life and other people? I know that I'm a really, really, really loving individual. So my story is that wherever I go, I meet loving people. And so I stay open to that. And so what happens? Everywhere I go, I meet people that are resonating with that energy. Right. Whereas before I used to be in protection mode. So I would shield myself, and I'd be looking out for all of the people that might be able to, that might hurt me, or that I felt unsafe around. What did I see? All of those people. Because that was my story. But at the same time, I have a lot of love for that woman, for that girl, because she did what she knew to do to keep herself safe. And that's all she knew. That's all she knew. So for me, it's like, when you are telling your story, when you are writing down the story, the beliefs that you hold about yourself, the way that you think, do it with love. Do it with some compassion. It's not a judgment. It's not opinions. It's not a telling off. It's a get rid. The healing needs to happen. And feel for that person, because that's how that person had to cope for years and years and years, telling themselves the story of, I'm not good enough. I'm getting this wrong. I'm always going to get this wrong. Everything goes wrong for me. Nothing works out for me. It's really weird, because when I sit here now, it was so easy for me before to kind of just come out with beliefs that were, I guess, negative, not believing in myself. And it's really weird, because it's actually quite hard for me now, because I can't even, the word's not coming to me, but I don't associate with them as much anymore. Because I fully used to believe, like, when anybody would say, oh, you know, you're a failure, or you're going to fail at this, or whatever, it was like, it really, really resonated with me. But it doesn't resonate with me because my story has shifted. Okay. So who are you as the character in that story? Are you the victim? Are you the one that's always causing the trouble? Are you the bad person? Are you the good person? Are you the right person? Are you the wrong person? Because these are the labels that you're carrying around with you 24/7. And then in your mind, you subscribe to the fact that, so in every situation, there has to be a good, there has to be a bad, there has to be a wrong, there has to be a right, there has to be a should, there has to be a should not. But where did you get those definitions from? How do you know that they're true? Because what we judge ourselves as, that is exactly what you're projecting out into the world as well, whether you're aware of it or not. And I urge you to get really, really aware of it. Really, really aware. Because you are responsible for your experience of anything and everything in life. And for me, that's one of the reasons why people don't own their narrative. They don't own their beliefs or their thoughts or their feelings because they don't want to be responsible. There is no out for me. That's where I am in my life right now. There is no out. 100% of the time, even when I fall into my mind, I know that I'm 100% responsible for my experience of everything. And as much as there's moments where I want to project it outwards, even if I do momentarily project it outwards, there's a moment where I kind of rewind. I'm like, that's funny, Amy. That's really, really funny. That's really, really funny. But it also shows me that something that I struggle with, there's something that I need to show more love to in me. And for me, like, your triggers are your gifts. They are your messengers going, hold on a minute, there's something to look at. Why am I telling myself this story? Because everything you do has a story attached to it. And just for one day, I invite you, even for a day, from the moment you wake up, to observe your story, from the way that you make your tea, your coffee, the way that you shower, the way that you get ready. Everything has a story embedded in it. I have to do it this way. But the next bit, and I urge you to ask it, why do I have to do it this way? Who said so? What happens if I don't do it that way? What's going to happen then? What is my fear? And how is this story keeping me stuck where I'm at? One of the biggest stories that we have is I can't do it. Can't do it. But that, again, is a story that you got from a very, very young age. So my question to you is, what would you need to believe? What would you need to believe about yourself in order to know that you can do it? What do you need to believe? And for me, the biggest thing you can give yourself is that space to reflect, a sacred space to have your reflection. And those questions for me are questions that really start to change everything. So what am I choosing to believe? What story am I choosing to write about myself? Why am I choosing it? How do I know it's true? Again, that's another way to really come out of a story quite quickly, is to kind of, how do I know this is true? How do I know? Where is the proof that this is true? Where? Because it's not true. The only place it's true is in your mind. Okay. And it might be true for, like, for example, for my mum, her truth is that if you fall over, it's something terrible and it must be your fault. So do I have to carry that truth forward? No. But I can't change it. Look, I'm running this story, this narrative in the background. It's running my life. So the gift I want to give myself is to give myself a new story. Okay, a new story about me, a new story about what I've lived and what it means. And start to embody that new story every single day, every single day, every single day. And if you can do it on a regular basis, that when you hit challenges or difficulties in relationships or things start to fall apart, then you're so used to it that you'll stop and you'll ask yourself, well, do I have to respond in the way that I'm responding? Or can I create a different story in the moment? Because the only place we can live is in this moment, right? So that moment gives you the opportunity to completely rewrite anything you want to. Because I am not all of the things that I went through. So my story now is very, very different. When I look back, when I rewrote, and I did do the process of rewriting the whole story as I wanted to see it, as I wanted to see it, as I want to experience my past. How do I want to experience my past? I want to experience my past in the way that it got me to where I am today. It made me the warrior that I am. I stand in my power, not because of all of the things that happened to me, but because of how I choose to view myself. And that is the gift that you can give yourself. You can utterly transform your experience of life just by the story that you are telling yourself. But you have to get present to it. You can use visualizations for this. You can use gratitude. You can use affirmations. It just depends what works for you. So for me, it's not about go run and use everything, or at a very surface level, start to kind of do visualizations or affirmations. It's like really find what works for you. Okay, what works for me is to be very, very present and watch myself from a zoomed out perspective. I take the higher perspective, right? So one of my spirit animals is a hawk, and it's a constant reminder. So today when I went for a short walk before this, whenever I see my hawk, it's really interesting. Sometimes my hawk is flying a little bit lower, and sometimes it's very high up. And today there were two, and they were flying higher and higher and higher. And that's like my reminder to take the higher perspective. So if you can watch yourself from a higher perspective, it allows you to see your story in action. So when you watch from a higher perspective, reflect on what it is that you see. Reflect on how you show up to different situations and the story that's running through your mind. And ask yourself, if I show up to this situation with no story, with just a sense of, I don't know what's going to happen next, but whatever happens next, I can deal with it in the moment. I don't need to pour all of my beliefs and stories about what might happen next. Go into it as a new person, a completely new person. Then you get to write your experience as you want it to be, right? Then you're not reacting to anything from your past. And it's a whole different experience of life. Believe me, from my experience, it's been a completely different experience. Because, so for example, when I used to go out and meet anyone, friends or anyone, there'd be this whole story going through my head. And I'm like, oh, what are they thinking about me? How do they think I look? Just, oh, is it okay for me to say this? What's going to happen if I share this? What are they going to think of me? And it ruined everything. It ruined every time I went out and I wanted to chill with someone. There's this whole narrative. So I'm not actually there. I'm just trying to micromanage the story and my beliefs. So I'm not actually enjoying anything and I'm not present for anything. So it makes no sense. Now when I do it, I walk into the situation, I'm like, I'm just here to enjoy myself. I don't need no story. There's no context. I don't need to bring any of it with me. So I'm going to park it for now. And I'm just going to be where I am and be who I am in this moment. And just enjoy this for what it is. I don't want to make it into something that it's not. Because otherwise I would sit there and I'd be looking at my friends and just trying to analyze it all and be like, oh my God, what does that look mean? Why are they looking at me like that? Do I not look okay? Do you know what I mean? So you're not present, you're not enjoying any of it. And I can see recognition on people's faces. I know that you've done that. I know that so many people do that. It's like, you don't enjoy it. There's nothing to it. How do you enjoy that? You don't. Because you're too busy being in your head and rerunning the whole story from your past because somebody 10, 20, 50 years ago treated you like that. But the saddest thing for me is not what happened to you 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. The saddest thing for me is that you are constantly reliving that and keeping it alive because that's what you think you're worth. When in reality, and I know it might sound complex, but for me, it's like, okay, I don't want to make things complex in life. But really, just to be present and watch your story. For me, that's like the least I can do for myself if I want to have new experiences in life. if I want to create a different reality, if I want a different human experience. And also, your reminder, once you have this sense of, I woke up to something different, wherever it may be for you, why then would you want to live what you were living before? Why? Like for me, I know I can't swear on this, right? I would swear a lot if I could. But for me, when I got to that point of like awakening, whatever you want to call it, I got to this point where I was like, oh my God, I am a soul having this journey as Amy Dave. And for all of these years, I've lived this same story, same story, same story. I've lived it in past lives. So why the F would I not want to now have the very best human experience that I can give myself? Why would I not do that? Why would you not do that for yourself? You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself. And you can have the most beautiful human experience in a moment to moment basis if you choose to commit to yourself, if you choose to be present to your narrative, because that's the only way to change it. This is one of those, like, for me, it's like I can write down lots of different things for you to go and do, okay? But the baseline of everything is be aware. Really, really be aware. Bring your awareness to everything. The way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you move, the way you interact, situations, challenges, relationships. Get present. Be there. Because otherwise you're not experiencing anything. And you owe this to yourself. So now that you know that you're this being that's here having this experience that you can create in any which way you want, why then would you keep living just the same thing again and again and again? For what purpose? And for me, that is ingrained in a belief that you've got. That is part of your story. I can't change it because I'm not worthy enough. I don't deserve it. I'm too frightened. Whatever it is for you, write it down somewhere. And the way that I see it the most in people, firstly, there's a level of people coming to me and going, yeah, I know that, Amy. And for me, it's kind of like, it's even worse because you know it, but you're not living it. Knowledge is nothing without you embodying it. Right. And for me, embodiment is I got to live it day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. I put reminders everywhere. So what's the story? What's the story that you want to live? So this is the leap from fear to love. Okay. A lot of people live from what I call the container of fear. Everything's going to go wrong. So I've got to like know what the worst thing that can happen is so that I can somehow manage it. If it happens. And I used to live my life like that, like on a daily basis. But what if you replace that container with love? And it's like every single thing that happens, and I guarantee that each one of you know this, at a brain level, you know this. You're forever held in love. You are forever held in love. My question to you is, do you believe it? My question to you is, what story have you made out of it? It might work for them, but it's not going to work for me. It might work like that's for those people. That's not how it's for me. And I've been there and I've done that. The guides might come for other people, but the guides don't come for me. It's your story. It's your belief. So what would happen if you decided tomorrow to go, I believe I am completely worthy of everything. I believe that I am completely deserving. I believe that I deserve the love at every single level. I believe that I am worthy of living every single thing that I wish to live. And that's the thing. You now need to start telling yourself a different story. So make a list. What are the things that I really want to believe? And read them. Implement them. Whenever you find yourself going off. And another indicator is the way you talk about yourself. Okay. And the people on this journey in particular, there is that level of like on a level I know. And then yet you'll have a conversation with someone and they're so derogatory of themselves. So derogatory. And I am so mindful, so mindful of the words I say about me, because that's creation. So I want you to be mindful of the way that you speak about yourself. But at a deeper level, again, it's your story about who you are. No, I'm always late for stuff. I always get stuff wrong. Of course I did it like that. That's what I always do. That's your story. And you're making it real if you keep saying the words. Because if you're not saying them, you're thinking them. So, again, what do you want to think about yourself? Because our beliefs are not truth. They're not some, global universal truth. It's your perception. And it would be really lovely if you could move from your perception, which are your own rose-tinted goggles of what the world is, to your intuition, which is your guiding force. But if you are constantly coming from this perception, from this story, you don't even plug into your intuition. So really, to change that story, you have to get present. You have to get present and you just allow yourself to watch it. And it's not about being harsh on yourself. So when I had the incident today, I didn't tell myself off, oh my God, Amy, why did you treat yourself like that? Because that's literally me reliving the story of what my parents did to me. Same outcome. It was really like, oh my God, Amy, what do you need right now? And I asked myself the question, like, how do I need to be treated right now? It's not a given. It's not like I know. I only know in the moment. What I know is I don't want to be treated like I was treated before. So in this moment, it's about that relationship that I have with me, right? I care about me enough to sit there and be like, okay, what do you need? What would help? I actually sat there and I just cuddled myself for a little while. And it really, really helped me, right? So it's really about this journey, full stop, is about you. The focus of this journey is you. It's not outside of you, it's you. To give yourself the attention, the care, the compassion, the tenderness, the gentleness, and ultimately the love that you deserve. And really ask yourself in every given moment, it is as simple as that, but it's practice. What do I want my story to be here? What would I like to believe about what's going on? So you can believe, like when everything was falling apart, I could either believe that this is all happening to me and it's awful and it's terrible and I can't cope and I won't cope and my life is falling apart and it's humiliating and I feel guilty and I'm ashamed. Or you can take the knowledge that you actually have, embody it, and bring awareness to it and go, okay, what is this teaching me? What am I supposed to be learning from this? Because it's given to me for a reason. It's either given to me to show me that I'm going through a repeated cycle and I'm not changing anything, or it's showing me where I was and where I am. It's giving me an opportunity to do something different. So it's entirely up to you. But for me, that story is controlling your life. So give yourself the chance to rewrite your story. Slowing down is really, really important. Like for me, it's a necessity on this journey to really slow down, because without slowing down, you can't really make sense of it. We just keep living the pattern because we're so used to it, right? So it's just take the steps, slow it down. And it's okay to slow down. That's another story we have, that it's not okay, right? Or that we have to respond in the moment to everything, but we don't. Take a step back. It's okay to kind of go, I need to go and reflect on that. I'll come back to you. So you don't get caught up in the story, right? So it's the awareness of that I'm going to drop into a story. When somebody says something like this to me, I drop into a story. So my thing on it is I will just step back and be like, okay, I don't have to react, but I can step back and be like, okay, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to reflect, and then I come back to you with a response, right? Mm-hmm. Takes you out of your story. If I don't get the job that I'm applying for, it's not because there's a story, it's because I'm divinely protected. So that's what you get to shift your story to. So it's really important what the story that you're telling yourself now is. And that's where the presence comes into it, because it's that level of understanding that we have, right? And that's why it's really important. The knowledge is different to the embodiment, right? So for me, the embodiment means that I can go, if I fell today, I knew instantly it's for a reason. So then the rest of the bullshit story, I don't need to go into it as deeply, because I know that there's a, like, it's okay with the spiritual journey. For me, it's not like one set of rules works here and one works over there. It doesn't. It's rules for rules. Everything is divinely guided. So whether something happens or doesn't happen, it's divinely guided. So for me, it's that embodiment of that as the core belief, the trust, the faith that every single thing is meant to turn out in the way that it was. Mm. All right. So all of the things that didn't work out for you before, maybe I guess I invite you to change the story to actually all of those things, that evidence that I'm telling myself I've got, that was all just things that I was never supposed to do. The true embodiment, like I cannot embody just one part of the journey or the understanding or the learning, because again, that's the story. I'm going to embody the bits that make sense to me and align with the story that I want to tell myself. But if it's that as a foundation, that every single thing is divinely guided and nothing happens unless it's supposed to happen and until it's supposed to happen, then that applies to every single thing. And it's really, really useful if we keep reminding ourselves of that, because when we fall into what we see as negative situations, our mind races. We go into our story and we forget that everything's divinely guided. All right. So it's great. That's why awareness is important. That's why being in the moment important. That's why it's important to observe ourselves.